people who are today Jamaica's national heroes, who fought against enslavement. And although slavery was abolished then, the idea that the English thought that they were superior still rankled many, many Jamaicans of every color, because George William Gordon would classify as a white person, but in fact he fought and he was hanged in 1865 in Morant in October of 1865 because he fought against slavery. But Jamaicans never sort of took it sitting down, as we said. And the same way you just move on, that's what they did even back in 1865 in fighting against slavery. Ina, you came here as a nurse. Tell us about that.
So
what did you encounter, and how did you get to be the director of perioperative nursing today at Yale?
It's an interesting story. I actually came to the United States because my husband had received a scholarship from our church organization to complete his graduate degree here. After he completed school, the church appointed him here, and actually that's how we ended up in Connecticut. He got appointed as an associate pastor at one of our churches in Bridgeport. I was actually traveling to New York because I could get a temporary license as a nurse in New York, and you couldn't get one in Connecticut because you're from Jamaica. Some countries get reciprocity, but we didn't have one here in Connecticut. So I worked in New York, saw this ad, did my boards, passed my boards, and so I was really official to work as a nurse in the United States. But let's just sort of back that up as to where I got started. I am the second child of 11 children.
Wow.
I am, yes. I'm the oldest girl, and so I have a little bit of a bossiness in my blood. But, you know, I was raised sort of as an assistant mother in our house because
when they're 11,
mom needed a lot of help. But there was something about my parents, and there's one thing in particular that my dad always says to us. He says, you know, my job is to prepare you for the world.
Yes.
I have no idea where you're going to land, and my job is to make sure that wherever you find yourself, you will be well prepared. And how he went about doing that was, just like the others said here, achievement in academics was not an option. It was not, it was not you did it if you wanted to. It was just what you did. It was the most natural thing. It was expected for you to perform.
And to succeed.
Absolutely. There was no option. Plus, there was this added responsibility for me because one of the things my parents sort of subtly said, you know, however you live your life, the rest of your brothers and sisters are going to follow. So I felt this tremendous responsibility to set an example for the rest of my brothers and sisters. And, you know, I think it was Keisha who said you either became a lawyer or a doctor, or you became a nurse or a teacher.
Exactly.
Those were the other options. And so I knew very, very early in my years, there was a public health nurse in my community, and I wanted to be like her. I loved the uniform. It was crisp. It was sharp. She walked down the street, and everybody almost like bowed to her. I mean, that's kind of the level of respect. And so I said, that's what I wanted. And so,
see, and that's the importance of role models. That's one of the things that our kids seem to lack today, good role models.
But the other thing that, the last thing I want to say is about my mother also was a seamstress. And one of the things she did for us as a family was she made all of our clothes. And she always used to say to us, you are my princesses and my prince. And so she dressed us as if we were the most precious thing in the world.
Yes.
And one of the things my dad always did for us was once a year, he would put us in our finest clothes. He would set a table with the finest of china, and he would treat us as if we were at a hotel.
Wow.
And his task was, the purpose of that was to make sure that we didn't mess our clothes up. Because if you didn't mess your clothes up, then you passed the test of being able to eat properly and function properly and present. So that was part of their way of saying, you're going to be ready for the world. And so, you know, achievement was just not an option. It was not an incidental. It was not an accident. It was just the way it was going to be. You know,
you say it about setting the table, because my great-grandmother did that too. You know, like on a Sunday, the table had to be set, the knife and fork, the napkins, you had to know whether you eat from left to right or right to left, or they eat with a fork inside out and where the small spoon goes. And that was practicing for you to, you know, assume your rightful social place.
That's right.
But in
Yes.
general, also, that's just the concept of having a meal as
Yes,
opposed to
yes.
grabbing something
Right.
to eat.
And running, yes.
Right.
So,
yes.
so the whole concept of having meals with family, with, you know, where
Discipline.
you speak,
Right.
where you
Yes.
Right.
engage
That's
each
right.
other.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
That's I mean, that's something that was pervasive in every strata of Jamaican society.
Exactly, even
So
from
it
very
didn't-
poor people.
Right.
Exactly,
Right.
yes.
That's right.
So even in what people from Kingston would call the country,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
there would be a meal. Yeah, it's a big part of family life, and that's where you realized what was expected of you.
I didn't know that people could sort of grab the food and take it to the car. We never did that, you know, growing up.
Then we didn't have cars.
Yeah, but I mean, but the point, the whole idea of you getting home for 6 o'clock to have dinner, and from, you know, back in my days, listening to the BBC News, that was, you know, I didn't have television until I think when I was 11, I started, you know, seeing, when I went off to boarding school, I got to see television. But in my home, there was no television. There was the Grundig radio and, you know, the big records and the BBC News at 6 o'clock with Roy Reid. And you know, we all listened. And the other thing that happened, every day you came home from school, those of us who had grandmother and my great-grandmother would go over with me what I learned in school that day, from ever since I can remember. So the learning was reinforced because you had to tell it to somebody else and you had to answer questions.
Right. So just the last piece I want to add
No,
is,
go ahead.
which I probably didn't just sort of tie the loop up on why I'm here and how we got here is, so I came to Yale in 1992 as a staff nurse in the operating room, and in about 6 months I had a promotion. And that was an exciting journey. I functioned in a new role called a laser coordinator. And then I was promoted again to the nursing educator for our department. And about 3.5 years later, I got another promotion to the manager for one of our units. And 18 months later, my boss left. And I was asked to assume the position of nursing director.
But here's
for
my
perioperative
question.
services.
Why do you think you were offered these promotions as opposed to
Yeah,
other
I don't
people?
think you got promotion.
Yes.
I think you earned
Right,
promotion.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
okay, all right. If you want to put it that way. Well, you know, it's interesting. I started asking the question about after the third promotion, and I said, well, what is it that you guys are sort of seeing and observing?
Yes.
And a couple of things sort of became themes. One was, and I'll never forget a surgeon really saying to me, he says, you've got the kind of courage that I just haven't seen for a long time.
Wow.
And for a little
Yes.
woman, the kind of courage you have is just unfathomable. And he asked me, where'd you get that from? And I said, it's the only thing I've ever known. So for me, it wasn't courage, it was normal life.
Yes, yes, yeah.
But I think the other things were just a sense of real integrity, a sense of purpose.
Yes.
And I think that the fact that really, if you saw something and you wanted it, you went and got it. And that there was no fear, there was no sense that I could not be as equal to anybody else.
Yes.
Every job was, you know, available to me as it was to anybody else.
Okay, we're going to come back and talk more about that. You're watching OneWorld Civic Engagement. Our topic tonight, our civic engagement topic tonight is celebrating Jamaica's 50th anniversary of independence. Jamaica earned independence from British rule on August 6, 1962. So we here, all of us sitting at the table tonight, are Jamaicans. We're all born in Jamaica and raised by some very strong Jamaican parents and grandparents and uncles and the extended family. And with me at the table tonight are people who have, I label them academic achievers because that's what they are. And I will just remind you who they are. They are Professor Richard Brooks, and you are tell us the chair that you hold.
The Leighton Homer Surbic Professor of Law.
Okay. And Professor Brooks has he has a bunch of degrees, but he has, he has a JD and a PhD from Berkeley and where else?
The University of Chicago.
I mean, we're not talking about, you know, We're talking
Thank
about
you,
top.
thank you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, school. Right. Yes, we're talking about University of Pittsburgh. Yes.
It's the real deal.
Yes. Top 10 schools.
Otherwise, go and fly by night for those people.
Poor Alan is standing wondering what are these terms, what do these mean? And Dr. Keisha Michelle, who is giving out all those